Today, we're talking about what it actually costs to keep two goals going at the same time. And I don't just mean what it costs in time and energy. I mean what you end up missing without even realizing it. We'll start with a story. There's a couple of examples that might feel a little too familiar, and I want to be honest about something from my own life too. At the end, there's a question I want to leave you with. If you've ever felt like choosing one thing meant losing the other, this one's for you. Welcome to The Steady Becoming. We already know most of what we need to grow. Focus matters, small things done repeatedly add up, and we get better as we go. We know it, we just forget it when it counts. This show is the reminder that what works is often simple and often steady. I'm your host, Miriam. This is episode number 2. It's a reminder to focus on one thing at a time. Okay, so before we get into the story, I want to paint a picture first. And tell me if this sounds familiar. You've got two things. And I'm talking about projects, goals, the things you're trying to build or learn or grow on purpose. Not the hard things that life handed you, the things that you chose. For example, learning French and Spanish, or choosing between two Etsy shop ideas. Do you have two things like that? Two things you genuinely want, not in a someday maybe kind of way, but like actually want. Both feel real, both feel possible. And every time you try to pick one, there's this little pang about the other one. Like you're already sad about it and you haven't even done anything yet. Because I think a lot of us are just walking around holding two goals, two projects that we can't put down. And it's not because we're scattered or bad at decisions. It's because they're both actually good. They both actually matter. And that makes it really hard. So what do? We do both. We tell ourselves that's the smart move, the safe move. I'll work on both. I'll see which one takes off. And honestly, that sounds really reasonable. It sounds like a plan. It sounds like a strategy. Today's story is about a woman who had a plan like that. There was a woman who studied tide pools on a rocky shelf where the sea met the shore. She wanted to watch what happened to a group of creatures during the change of season. She had found two pools within a half-mile of each other. Both were remarkable. The northern pool held a colony of star-shaped creatures, the color of rust. They moved so slowly, they seemed part of the rock itself. The southern pool held creatures that stayed closed at high tide and opened each morning into something almost flower-like. Either would have been enough. She chose both. She told herself 2 was smarter than 1. She couldn't bring herself to leave either pool behind. She decided to visit both every morning. The southern pool first, then the northern. Splitting her time between them would not matter much. These things moved slowly after all. She walked to the shore each morning with her notebook open, certain the rhythm was sound. She gave each pool what the morning allowed. An hour at the southern, an hour at the northern, the walk between them taking whatever was left before the tide returned. She recorded what she saw. She saw a great deal. But she could only record where things were, not what they were doing. She would arrive, and the rust-colored stars would be arranged one way. She would return the next morning, and they would be in another. Something had happened in between. She did not know what. She began filling the gaps with inference. What had probably happened? She wrote faster, adding more detail about position and more careful measurements. Because she only had an hour at each pool, she had to start leaving notes to herself in the margins. Come back to this. Check tomorrow. Watch this one more carefully. A list that grew longer every morning and was never quite finished. The walk between the pools was half a mile. She spent it trying to clear her mind, setting down everything she had just seen at one pool, picking up everything she needed to remember about the other. It never quite worked. She would finish at the southern pool, already composing notes for the northern. She would arrive at the northern, still thinking about the southern. By the time she was fully present at one pool, it was time to leave for the other. The two pools had begun to blur in her mind. She started finding errors in her notebooks. Wrong pool written at the top of a page. A creature recorded in the northern that she had only seen in the southern. Small mistakes, each one corrected, each one costing her time she did not have. Her shoulders curved forward over the pages. The days were shortening. She walked to the shore knowing the change was close. One morning, she arrived at the southern pool and found the flower-like creatures doing something she had not seen before. She needed to stay. She stayed longer than she should have, then longer still. She wrote faster, filling half a page, then another. Her notes grew messier, harder to read. She was not finished. She was not close to finished. She glanced up. The water was rising. The northern pool was waiting. She closed her notebook and went. She arrived at the northern pool with what was left of the morning. The rust-colored stars had shifted. She could see that immediately. They were clustered differently, pulled toward one end of the rock in a way she had never recorded. Something had happened. She did not know when. She wrote down what she saw. The tide was already at her boots. The next morning, she came back to both pools. The southern creatures had closed, fully, tightly. The northern stars had settled into their new arrangement, still and complete. She had records up to the edges of the change, and records starting after it, and a blank space in the middle where the change had happened. She sat for a long time on the rocks, water cold around her boots. Both notebooks open across her knees. She closed the southern notebook and placed it gently on the rock beside her. She turned to face the northern pool. The tide was going out. Light was moving across the rock. She turned to a fresh page, and she waited. She set it down gently, like not slammed shut, not thrown in frustration. She set it down gently because she still loved it, And I think that's the thing that makes this so hard, right? It's not like we're choosing between something good and something bad. It's that both things are actually good. Both things actually matter. And choosing one feels like you're already grieving the other one before you've even started. There's a grief in it. But also, and this is the thing, there's something underneath the grief that feels like relief. Like she's finally giving herself permission to actually finish something. She didn't lose the southern pool by setting it down. It's still there. She can go back next season. Setting it down isn't the end. It's just her finally deciding to do one thing right. Okay, so let's talk about why we do this in the first place. And I just want to say something first because I think it's important. Like, of course you're doing both. Of course you are. I'm not saying that as a criticism. When you actually lay out the logic, it makes total sense. You have two things you care about. You don't know which one is going to work, so you hedge. You keep both alive. That's not being scattered. That's actually kind of protective. And honestly, both things are probably genuinely good. And that's the part nobody really talks about. This isn't a situation where one option is clearly right and you're just being indecisive. They're both real. They both have potential. No wonder you can't put one down. The researcher felt this too. She knew that either pool would have been enough for her study. Her goal was literally just to watch one group of creatures through the season change. And she still couldn't leave either one behind because they were both remarkable to her. And I don't think that's a flaw. That's just what it feels like to genuinely care about two things equally. So I'm not here to tell you that you were wrong to start both. I just think it might be worth thinking about what it actually costs to do both at the same time. Okay, so 2 examples, because I think this is going to feel really familiar. Say you want to learn French, and you also want to learn Spanish. Both are beautiful, both are useful, and honestly, they're related languages, so it kind of seems like learning them together would be efficient, right? So you start both. A little Duolingo in French, a little in Spanish. You feel like you're making progress on 2 things at once. Or say you want to open an Etsy store. You have 2 ideas. One selling baby bows, one selling pet portraits. And you don't know which one is going to take off. So it feels smarter to start both and see what gains traction. Like, that's just good strategy. And both of those feel like completely reasonable plans. That's the thing. They really do. Okay, so here's what I've come to understand about split focus. When you're dividing your attention between 2 things, you're always like arriving. You're always trying to get back into the flow. You never actually get to the part where you're really like in it, really engrossed in it. The researcher showed us this so clearly. She could record position. She could write down where the creatures were, but she couldn't record behavior. She could see that they'd moved, but she had no idea what they were doing or why. She was filling her notebooks with best guesses about what probably happened. And she was writing faster and faster, trying to catch up. But the understanding just wasn't coming. That's what split focus does. It keeps you permanently in the recording positions phase, always catching up, always guessing. You never quite get there. Okay, so back to the examples for a second. With French and Spanish, you're learning vocabulary in both, but you're never deep enough in either for one to actually click. And with Romance languages especially, the words are so similar. You start mixing them up, and suddenly you're spending all your energy just keeping them straight instead of actually learning either one. With 2 Etsy stores, you now have 2 completely different customers to understand. Baby bows and pet portraits are not the same person, like not the same customer, not the same search terms, not the same aesthetic at all. You're trying to figure out both audiences at once, and you go a little bit deep on everything and all the way deep on nothing. And then, okay, this is the part I personally find hardest, and I feel like nobody really talks about it. There's the switching cost. So when I sit down to work on something, there's this whole process of like uploading the project back into my brain. Where was I? What was I trying to figure out? What did I decide last time? And if I'm working on something else in between, that's a re-upload that takes so much longer. It's like starting from scratch every single time. I can't do it in one day. I've tried. I cannot sit down and say, okay, I'm going to work on this project in the morning and then switch to that project for the afternoon. By the time I'm fully present in the first thing, it's already time to leave. And I arrive at the second thing still thinking about the first. That was her too. On the walk between the pools, she was never fully where she was going. For me, honestly, I like to focus on one work project for at least a week, or preferably, honestly, weeks or months. I need to be in something for weeks at a time before I feel like I'm getting somewhere with it. And I don't think that's just me. I think that's just how deep work actually works. Okay, here's the part I think I might think about forever. We never really know what we missed. Like, you'll never know how it would have gone if you just focused on one thing. You just don't know. The researcher didn't know what she'd missed until she saw the blank space. She had records right up until the change, and records starting right after it. But in the middle, nothing. A gap. Right where the most important thing had happened. And she had no idea it was coming. She couldn't see it until it was already too late. And that's the thing about split focus that's so hard to catch while you're in it. Because you don't feel like you're missing something. You feel like you're covering everything. You're showing up, you're filling the notebooks, you're doing the work. And then you look up and realize you have records of everything except the thing that actually mattered. And in the story, it's obvious. There's a literal blank space. She can see exactly what she missed. In real life, it's almost never that clear. You just kind of know something isn't working, and you move on. You never really stop and wonder, what would have been possible if I'd stayed? Because there's a thing that happens when you stay with something long enough. It starts to open up to you. You stop seeing what's there, and you start to understand why it's there. You go from guessing to actually knowing, and that's when it gets good. With French, there's this moment, at least this is what I've heard, that there's this moment, if you stay with it, where it starts to really make sense. You stop translating in your head and you just start thinking in it. You can't get there on 45 minutes a week split with something else. That moment only comes from staying with it. With an Etsy store, there's something you figure out about your specific customer when you go deep that nobody else knows. Because nobody else stayed long enough to find it. What she actually searches for. What makes her click. That's what starts to separate your store from everyone else's. And you can't find it while you're trying to figure out a completely different customer at the same time. You don't know what you're missing while you're missing it. You only ever see the blank space after. Okay, so I created this story to illustrate the quote, "He who chases 2 rabbits catches none," which is an old proverb often attributed to Confucius. And it's funny because I picked this quote to work on a few weeks ago, and it took me a few days to create and edit the story. And the entire time, I didn't put together that I have two rabbits. Yes, I mentioned in episode 1 that I have two pet bunnies, and that's how I think of them, as bunnies. I don't think of them as rabbits in my mind for some reason. Like, I don't know what that is, but I just think of them as bunnies. But I was doing stuff around the house and thinking about what I was going to say about the story when it hit me. Oh my gosh, I literally have two rabbits. And sometimes I have to chase them. Okay, so let me tell you a story that happened probably about a year ago. So, my bunnies live in our basement. They have this little section of the basement with a cute rug and their bunny house and space to run around and play. It's like a half-finished room in the basement. Half-finished walls, no door. Anyway, there's a gate to keep them in the room, and we have to keep that locked. Well, I don't want to blame it on my kids, but I mean, they were 8 and 12 at the time, and it was their job to feed the bunnies treats at night. Also, my job to make sure the gate is closed and locked, but who's perfect? So one day, I wake up, make my coffee, and go straight to work before anyone wakes up. And I'm like, still half asleep. I go downstairs to my office in the basement. I close my door and I sit at my desk. Then from the other side of my office door, I hear this thump and like scurrying sounds. So I hold still and I'm like, what was that? And then I realize it sounds like the bunnies. What are they doing near my office? What the heck? So I go out of the office and I see a bunny just like out of the corner of my eye, like run to the other side of the stairs. The bunnies had been loose in our basement the entire night. I started chasing them. After probably, 15 or 20 minutes, I finally got them both back into their cage. And I kid you not, I feel like I'm really lucky it didn't take longer. Honestly, it's hard to catch just one bunny. My tactic was basically open the gate to their room wide open, chase them, and hope they just choose to run into their room. That worked for the first bunny, and eventually I somehow got that one into the cat carrier. Then I did the same with the other bunny. But I was just like, how am I going to do this? So after I got them back in their cage, I was like, oh my gosh, they probably destroyed the basement. How many cords did they chew? Did they chew the cord for the dryer? How are they not dead from chewing on some cord down here? So I looked at every cord in the basement, and luckily they didn't die and nothing was really damaged. No cords were actually chewed. But man, oh man, it is not easy to even catch one bunny. So yeah, starting one thing is hard enough, let alone two at once. My bunnies, though, they're so cute. Like, their ears flop down and they're small and cute and soft. Okay, so switching gears. Okay, so now I want to be honest about something. This is really hard. I know because, I'm in it. Last summer, I was ready for a change at work and thinking about where to focus next. I had two things I genuinely wanted to grow. I had Spoonflower, which is this site where I upload patterns and sell them as fabric and wallpaper. I've been doing it as a side project for a while, and I was ready to actually go for it, like really go for it. Social media, the whole thing. And then I had this podcast idea that I'd been sitting on for a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point. So Spoonflower and this podcast, both real, both fun, both something I wanted to spend all my working hours on. And I genuinely didn't know which one to choose. And I spent a while going back and forth about whether I should just do both, split my time and grow both at the same time. And I know what it costs to try. That feeling of always being a little behind on both, never quite caught up on either. Like you're constantly writing yourself notes about what you still need to do. And you never actually get to any of them. The way your brain is technically in one place, but you're mentally still in the other project. I've been there. And I know from having gone deep on things before, like really deep, is that going deep on something creates something that splitting your time just can't. There's a version of understanding that only comes from sticking with one thing for a long time. From showing up so many times in a row that you stop guessing and start actually knowing. I've felt that. It's like magic. And it is completely different from the scrambling feeling of trying to do too much at once. So I made a decision. The podcast is my main focus right now. I'll keep working on Spoonflower as I have for years, but that's in maintaining mode for now, not growing mode. And this podcast is where I'm going deep. I'm learning as I go, and honestly, it's a lot. But it feels really good to focus. I still want to do everything, honestly. I'm not going to pretend I've solved this. The impulse to add more is always there. I still catch myself wanting to do more. But when I think about the researcher on the rocks, closing one notebook gently, turning toward the other pool, I think, okay, this one first, the other one's not going anywhere. Okay, so here's what all this comes down to. She was so afraid of losing one pool that she ended up losing both. Not because she wasn't trying hard enough, not because she wasn't smart, because she was divided. She was holding on so tight to both that she couldn't really hold on to either one. And I want to stay there for a second because she wasn't being careless. She was being the opposite of careless, and it still wasn't enough. And look, I get it. This is so hard. Knowing it doesn't automatically make choosing easier. You can understand exactly why it isn't working and still feel completely stuck. That's not a failure. That's just how hard it is to put down something you love. But choosing one thing doesn't mean losing the other. The southern pool is still there. She can go back next season. It's not gone. She didn't abandon it. She just decided this one first. And because of that, she'll actually get to finish something. She'll actually understand what she came here to understand. So you can do everything you want to do. I really believe that. You can learn French and Spanish. You can open 2 Etsy stores. I can build the podcast and have fun with the Spoonflower shop. You can have all of it, just not all at once. And the trying to have it all at once is actually what puts it all at risk. Setting one thing down isn't a loss. It could be a promise. I'll be back for this, just not yet. This one first. Okay, so here's the question you're probably sitting with right now. Like, okay, I get it. I need to choose one. But what if I choose the wrong one? And here's what I think about that. Both of these things got you to this moment. Both of them are real enough and good enough and possible enough that you've been like losing sleep over which one to pick. That means either one is probably a fine choice. And it could be that the only actual wrong choice is the one you're actually making, which is not choosing. And also, this isn't permanent. The researcher can go back to the southern pool next season. She didn't close that notebook forever. You're not tattooing this on your arm. Unless, I guess if tattoos are your actual 2 things, then yeah. But you're just deciding what you're doing first. And if it ever feels genuinely wrong, not just hard, but wrong, you'll know and you can adjust. And if you genuinely don't know which one to choose, maybe do a little research, see what feels right, listen to yourself. Because honestly, I think you probably already know. But I'd be willing to bet that 3 months of actually going deep on one thing is going to feel so different from what you've been doing. that the question of whether you choose right just kind of answers itself. So here's your reflection question for this week. What's your southern pool? The thing you love, that isn't going anywhere, that you could actually come back to if you gave yourself permission to put it down for now. Okay, before I go, I'm going to try and figure out how I can get a picture of my bunnies in the show notes because, you deserve to soak up their cuteness. And if this episode resonated, if you know someone who's been holding two things they can't put down, send it to them. That's genuinely how shows like this find the right people. And if you're not already following along, go ahead and follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. It's free, and it just means you won't miss the next one. Links to everything I mentioned in this episode are in the show notes and the description. In closing, I just want to say that the researcher sat on those rocks for a long time, both notebooks open across her knees. She didn't rush it. She just sat with it. And when she was ready, she closed one, gently, and she turned to a fresh page. I think you already know which one you'd choose. And if you're not ready yet, that's okay. You don't have to do it today. But maybe just let yourself know it. Like, between you and you, which one are you turning towards? Setting the other one down isn't giving up on it. It's not a goodbye. It's just not yet. This one first. And when this one holds, when you really have it down, you go back for the other one. And you do it right. This is the steady becoming. Around here, we don't burn it down. We adjust and we keep going. And when you do, there's no telling the ripple effect on you and quietly on everyone around you. You got this.